I've been watching some of the recent dialogues that have been taking place between Pyrrho, Cashify and to a certain extent Onenall. I haven't watched them all, I've read all the comments, so I might be out of line here, but what I've been picking up on is really interesting, and it's talking about Brahman and illusion. And what it put me in mind of was, well, I think Pyrrho mentioned this overtly in one of the videos, which was this thing about this kind of three-line gag that resolves some of the paradoxes, which is that this thing about the world is an illusion, only Brahman is real, Brahman is the world. And I think what that's an attempt to do is to, as I say, resolve some, not exactly paradoxes, but some kind of stumbling blocks produced by the nature of our thinking. And those stumbling blocks being what's seen as a distinction between reality and illusion. Between reality and illusion, I suppose. So you put Brahman into the loop and set the whole thing into motion, because that phrase, you know, the world is an illusion, only Brahman is real, Brahman is the world, it sort of works to resolve the paradox, if you like, by, as I say, setting the whole thing into motion so that one term folds over into the other, with Brahman kind of running through the system and kind of powering the system, if you like. That's at least how I visualize it. There's a couple of things come out of that for me, really. One is this use of a re-entry loop as this constant cycling, this constant folding over or rolling over to resolve a kind of binary opposition which appears irresolvable on the surface. You resolve it by putting it in motion, as I say, and start turning it into a cycle. It's reminded me of the way that Francisco Varela talks about consciousness, because when he's talking about, in one of the places he's talking about consciousness at least, he refers to George Spencer Brown's laws of form, which I haven't really got time to explain here, but one of the key aspects of the laws of form, which is a kind of mathematics devised by George Spencer Brown, one of the key aspects of it is the idea of distinction. So you make a mark on a page, usually a mark of a circle in the maths that he uses, and there's a distinction between the inside and the outside. That primary distinction, the division, the severing of a space that brings the universe into existence. What Francisco Varela does with that is that he uses that separation, that division, that distinction, to power an understanding of consciousness by, it's really hard to explain this and to understand, I have to say, by kind of setting in motion the crossing from outside to inside and inside to outside. So there's a kind of little cybernetic loop, a re-entry loop he calls it, that takes place across the boundary from outside to inside, from, in Brown, the unmarked state to the marked state. And that constant cycling, as I say, Varela associates with consciousness. So I think there's something very interesting for that about, or an interesting parallel between the Brahman aphorism and the Varela there. It's almost as if in Brahman, you know, the world is an illusion, only Brahman is real, Brahman is the world. But the world is kind of the marked state. So you go from the unmarked state into the marked state, and that rolls back out into the unmarked state again. With kind of reality, at least empirical objective reality, being identified as a series of marks, a series of names, a series of definitions. That's the kind of thinking I'm deploying there, at least. So that's one aspect of it. The other, which is perhaps less interesting in some ways, is a video I watched of Ken Wilber doing an analysis of that phrase in terms of Cartesian philosophy and to a certain extent Vedanta. It's only a short clip, it's on YouTube, and I'll put the link in the sidebar. But he's basically talking about how Descartes and Cartesian, just Cartesian being, if you like, is 2/3 of the way through that. It identifies inside, outside, body, mind, self, other. You know, there's that classic Cartesian dualist split, but doesn't resolve it by pumping Brahman through the system. It's kind of how he's talking about it. But what's interesting, he does this gesture, which I've been non-consciously doing throughout this presentation, actually. I'll just do it. He does this, he says, the world is an illusion, only Brahman is real, Brahman is the world. That's kind of the gesture he makes whilst he's doing it. So if you like, this cycle is set up with Brahman kind of flowing through or powering the system, and the direction of travel of Brahman in that cycle, as identified by Wilbur, is one in which Brahman kind of exudes from the self, from the body. So it goes from self to world. The world is an illusion, only Brahman is real. Brahman is the world, and it kind of bursts forth and brings the world into being. Or, yeah, it's that kind of thing, at least. Which, for me at least, places Wilbur in a particular relationship to different kinds of mysticisms. There's a guy called Stace who writes, I can't remember his first name, who writes on mystical traditions, and he says there's two different types of mystical traditions, what he calls the introvertive and extrovertive. The introvertive is one which looks inside the self, inwards, to the source of a mystery or the source of non-duality. And once one locates that, then that becomes identified with the world, and that's effectively what Wilbur's doing. If you look inside yourself, there's Brahman, and Brahman brings the world into being, which, again, which kind of congeals back into a self again. But Stace also says there's another one, which is I might have these the wrong way around, actually, extrovertive, either way, extrovertive, in which you start with the world. You start with the world, and then you lose yourself first, find the world, and then the world propels you back into being. So that the cycle is reversed. So let me just see if I can figure out what the gesture sequence for that would be. It would be Brahman is real. Oh God, Brahman is real. The world is an illusion. Hang on, the world is an illusion, only Brahman is real. Brahman is the world. No, I can't figure out the sequence. I'll have a think about that and see if I can do that. But I just find that idea of being able to resolve dualistic paradoxes caused by the nature of our dualistic thinking, resolving that by setting the whole thing into motion and deriving terms like consciousness, as Varela does, or that kind of understanding that's within thoughts that contain Brahman. Interesting. I'm on the salt line today, which is the old railway line that runs near my house. And these are my dogs. Guy and Phoebe. Come on,